Perhaps this is the first ever episode that I talk about a standalone watch, but I think it's time that we touch on this watch. Some of you may have guessed it already. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the Seiko SPGA 211. But what is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Gentleman Pursuits podcast. My name is Ryan. And I'll be your tour guide through this complex and intricate world of horology. As said before, this episode I want to spend some time to talk about the Seiko SPGA 211, or commonly referred to as the Snowflake. The Snowflake is one of the more popular model from Seiko's Spring Drive series, launched in 2010, and has quickly become a fan favorite. Some even say that the Snowflake is like the face of Seiko. Whenever people talk about Seiko, the first watch that comes into people's mind is the Snowflake. Before we get into just how amazing this watch is, let me talk a little bit about my experience with it first. Well, obviously I've heard of this watch numerous times before, and I was a little bit skeptical about the hype of this watch. I've never knew anyone that owns this watch. I've never seen this watch in real life. All I've seen was pictures and reviews from Hodinkee, and people talk about this watch on different forums. But finally, yesterday I went to a boutique and asked if I can take a closer look. And people at the boutique were really friendly, and they let me. And as soon as they take the watch out, I was completely blown away. Let's talk about the feeling of it on my wrist first. It was slightly bigger than I anticipated, but oh man, how should I put this? The Snowflake is just like an art film. So yeah, like an art film. So at first glance, the first time you watch it, it looks okay, it looks normal. But when you dig a little bit deeper, just a bit deeper, you would develop a whole new level of appreciation, because now you understand it more. So at a closer look, the dial of the Snowflake is just like the name suggested, snow-like, which is actually really unique to spring drive movement watches. I don't think Grand Seiko does this dial on any other watches. Another thing that stands out to me was the smoothness of the glide of the blue second hand. It is really mesmerizing. This watch is truly breathtaking. I thought Rolexes have the smoothest second hand glide, but I guess I was wrong. Within the watch community, a lot of people would compare the Grand Seiko Snowflake, to perhaps a Rolex Oyster Perpetual, or maybe a Datejust. And to be honest, I don't know which to pick. If we're judging by the size of the watch, I'd go with the Rolex, but the spring drive movement of the Grand Seiko is just too hard to pass, so it's really a tough match for me. But let me briefly explain what a spring drive movement is, because it is really crucial that you know what this is and why this makes the Snowflake what it is today. So a spring drive movement has come a long way. First, it was patented in 1982, but was only publicly announced at the 1997 Basel World. Within the movement, there's a quartz oscillator to it as well, but unlike a quartz watch, there are no batteries. The spring drive movement is mainly powered by the mainspring, and it's a really unique technology where no other movement come close. There's also something called the tri-synchro regulator. Tri means three, obviously, and it refers to the three types of energy present in the movement. Magnetic, we got electrical, we got mechanical. First, magnetic, it comes from the glide wheel, and electrical from the quartz crystal, and mechanical from the mainspring. All these information is actually available on the Grand Seiko's website, but if you don't like to read, which is why you're listening to this podcast right now, I'm here to explain it. For mechanical power, the spring drive uses a system identical to that of a pedal-powered bicycle light to generate electrical power. In a spring drive watch, the rotor or glide wheel makes 8 full revolutions every second, generating a slight electric current. The electrical power generated by the glide wheel is used to activate a quartz oscillator, NIC, and the magnetic power is actually a regulator in this situation where it will apply brakes when it detects that the glide wheel is moving too fast, which ensures the smooth gliding and the precision of the second hand. Another thing that is so amazing about this watch is the power reserve. A spring drive movement creates an extremely small amount of energy. It is unexpectedly small. According to Hodinkee, if everyone on Earth were to wear a spring drive watch, the accumulated power would only be able to power a 100-watt light bulb, which is crazy if you think about it. Because what is the power reserve of the snowflakes again? 72 hours. So in order to achieve this, the spring drive movement has to have a really efficient energy reserve system that includes an excellent circuit and a new coil system. Just how amazing and crazy can this watch get? But as always, in outsider's eye, Seiko or Grand Seiko watches is still subpar, which is sad. I've always tried to bring Seiko or Grand Seiko up more because their watches are really good and underrated, just like Snowflake. And if the watch is slightly smaller, it will be a perfect watch for me. But unfortunately, I have a really skinny wrist, so who am I to blame? Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of the podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button in front of you. I'm not sure if you're listening this on Spotify or Anchor, but either way, make sure you're following me on every social media platform, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Anchor, Spotify, everything. Just make sure you're following me. You'll get the latest news on articles, uploads, podcasts, new news, all kind of posts on watches and whiskeys. If you're not, you're missing out. So yeah, make sure you're following us. And until next Sunday, have a great week, guys. Stay safe. I'll see you guys.